All right. So as a software engineer, knowing that the simplest path is usually the best is like the Occam's razor. If you know, it's a principle about the complexity of an approach, of a solution. And the Occam's razor says that the simplest solution is usually the right solution, the right approach. And when we are maintaining a code base, when we need to scale a business and so an application, looking for different approaches and thinking which one is better. When we choose the simpler one, it will be easier to maintain. It will be quicker to implement. We will be able to look and see with that simpler proof of concept, if it does work, we can then add more edge cases. We can then add more business logics on top of it. But starting by something simple, similarly with microservices, when each microservice is simple and works perfectly right, well, then everything else will be fine because everything is simple enough for the business to work in the longer term. That means when you have something simple and you need to migrate for whatever reason to a different programming language, let's say that at the moment you use Python and you need to move to Rust maybe. Well, it will be easy enough because your logic, your models, everything, the libraries, the dependencies are not that big because even though it doesn't do everything, even though it could be better, more complete, you chose the simpler solution, the simpler path. And the simpler path, it's always the most ideal one. Similarly, when you do performance review, when you write less, it will be most of the time better because no one has the time to read everything. The same when you are a data scientist and you have to write a report with pie charts and, things about the business. If it's too long, they will just ask you the questions instead of reading everything because they don't have the time. So they prefer to ask you, and even though it was written on your report, they wouldn't read it because it's just too long. So something simple and having that ability to summarize what you have to write. So something concise. Well, that will be the win game. And it's not easy to find a simple path to the right solution. It's very hard. It's not simple doesn't mean, less doesn't mean easy. Simple doesn't mean easy. It can be hard to find the simple UX. For a user, the user experience is important. And when it's simple, when it's clear, when it makes sense, when you don't have too many options everywhere, well, you have to think twice because you don't want to make the user think. Because the more the user has to think, the harder it is. And you want to implement a super simple solution. Elegant. And something elegant, something that is straightforward for the user, you have to think a lot for the implementation. And this is really the beauty of a job like me and like you as an engineer. We have that ability of implementing a beautiful solution, something elegant, something where we decided to use a simple and elegant user interface and simple and elegant code base. Elegant these days, it's not really that relevant. I used to speak so much about clean code. Now with AI, of course, it makes maybe less sense, but less code still. It will be much easier for AI to understand your code base. It will use less tokens, so it will be cheaper as well to maintain because the more code you have, the more files you have, the more tokens your Copilot or your cursor, your AI-driven code editor will use, and the more expensive it will be. So that's why when you decide to choose a simple approach, it's also about the cost. And similarly, when you have a lot of engineers working on a code base, when your solution is very complex, it will take more time for an engineer to understand the whole logic and to go through everything. And the same is with AI. With an agent, it will have harder time to understand your code base and everything needed, because by definition, it's longer, it's more complex, it's much harder to understand. So that's really what I really want you to think today, because otherwise you will be stuck in a world that is just, you want to be complicated because at school you learned and you have been taught that for your essay, for your capstone, for your project, you need at least 2,000 words. You need something long, because when it's complex, when you have a lot of writings, it's good for your score. But in the real life, it's not the case. So I hope this video was helpful, and I wish you all the best. And again, tomorrow when you start working, think about how can I solve the same problem but much simpler than the actual problem. And a good exercise is to take already a fix you have done on a given problem and you have solved it already, but you do the same but simpler, and it may be completely different. And this kind of exercise, it forces you to go out of your comfort zone, to think out of the box. And thinking out of the box is a really good exercise. I have this problem, I have this given problem. How can I change the way, even though I thought it was obvious, the solution, there are so many countless amount of solutions I can do. And what if I choose something simpler, where I need to change less files, where the patch will be much smaller, and that will be your game, your challenge for the day. Happy coding, happy AI coding. Don't hesitate to help you with an agent and AI agent, and also have a walk. Think about it. How can I change also my life, my day-to-day life, into something simpler, less complexity, less things, less is more.